Hi, this is Commissioner Thomas, just doing a comps check.
Hear you. Can you hear us?
I can.
Yes, ma'am. Now I can.
John's not here, so that's short today. Call this meeting to order. 1:33. So I'm Heather. I just met Jonathan. I know. Have you met everybody?
I have.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Amanda Rosen. I'm the Director of Real Estate and Asset Management.
We just met. I'm Daryl Stafford, Waterfront Manager.
And I'm Debbie Smith-Wagar. We've met over email a number of times. Finance Director.
And I'm Kevin Greenwood. I'm the Executive Director and have emailed with you as well.
Yeah, thank you. Torby, your Commissioner.
All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. First on our agenda is election of officers. We need a president and secretary. Budget committee president. Okay, so we're going to elect a budget committee president to lead today's meeting and a secretary. Staff will prepare the official minutes. Do I have any nominations for budget committee president?
I was going to nominate you.
Good at that.
As the president.
That's good. You can be in charge.
Second.
Aye for me.
Okay.
Are you accepting the nomination?
I'll accept the nomination.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Have to do great since I've been on that?
No.
We did.
Toward seconded.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
Judy and
Judy.
Tor.
Okay, thank you. Now do I have a nomination for secretary? Who's not here? We should nominate.
John's not here, since he knows. See,
Maybe it would be good to explain the duties of the secretary.
Can we explain the duties of the secretary?
I believe all that the secretary has to do in this case is sign the minutes. Is there anything else that I'm missing, Patty? It's somewhat of a
All right,
figurehead.
I'm gonna nominate Jonathan, the new guy. I'm able to sign things. Okay, all right.
Did I hear a second?
Yeah.
He just-
We all did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then I will turn the meeting over to our new president.
And
And you can just look at me. You have the agenda.
yeah, just turn it over to Kevin.
So.
All right, well, we will turn it over to Kevin, our executive. Thank you, President Romero. Appreciate that. So in your packet, you see you did receive the budget message, and that is a requirement by state budget law that the budget officer present the message. And so I'm just going to do this won't be more than 5 minutes, just a verbal description of some of the highlights. Feel free and stop me at any point if you want to me to clarify anything. After I'm done, you can ask additional questions, or at that time we can hand it off to Debbie for a review of the individual documents. So I'll just open by saying good afternoon, President Gary and President of the Budget Committee Romero and citizen members of the Budget Committee. So as budget officer, it is my responsibility to prepare and present the proposed budget for the fiscal year 26-27. I'd like to thank Debbie Smith-Wagar, our finance director, along with our entire management team for all their work in developing this budget. I certainly couldn't do even a bit of this without their assistance. So the fiscal year 27 budget represents a significant transition year for the port. Beginning July 1 of 2026, bridge toll revenues will be restricted to bridge-related only uses. This eliminates a long-standing funding source that historically supported non-bridge related operations such as parks, the airport, and economic development. So as a result of that, the budget reflects a more focused approach on operating performance, financial transparency. We want to make sure everybody understands what's going on in the financial statements, and then we can point people to areas of the reports and that it makes sense to people, and also long-term sustainability. So we want to make sure that the decisions we're making here as a port allows the port to function competently into the future. We continue to implement the 2021 strategic business plan and capital planning efforts while initiating an update to the strategic business plan this year. So we have a guiding document called a strategic business plan. And so we're currently going through a review of that this year. And so keep an eye out for ways for you to participate and be involved with that. So I think the most important outcome of this year's budget is that the port is making measurable progress in improving our net operating income across nearly all departments. And for me, as the executive director, it's really important to differentiate between operating activities and non-operating activities. And so there is an appendix here on definitions and such, but I view the operations of the port really being salaries, personnel expenses, materials and services, which are like utilities, contracts, engineering, supplies, those types of things. Debt service, we have to make our debt payments. And so those are really our operating expenses. And then our operating revenues are really focused on leases, mortgage rates, T-hanger rates, tolls. And non-operating expenses would be things like transfers out of a fund into another fund, loans, big ticket items that really aren't a function of operation, but need to be accounted for. And then likewise, non-operating income would be like grants or insurance payments or things of that nature. So for me, it's really important to focus on our operations and certainly as we will be sustainable in the future. So using that framework, we have been evaluating each of our departments and the asset centers within each department based on its ability to generate revenue and manage expenses. And I think what we're seeing is very encouraging. Our industrial properties are generating strong positive operating income, and in fact, enough to justify doing set-asides for future capital. And so I think we can now show that in our financial statements and budget that we're preparing for that. Parking, there was a lot of operational effort in parking last year. We're showing a massive operational net income in our parking, which is a great way to fund our waterfront rec and our parks. The airport and marina basin operations are improving. There's still losses, but they're narrowing. So I think the efforts that the commission staff are doing are working in the right direction. And the same with waterfront rec. Waterfront rec is never going to generate enough fees or operating revenue to pay for its expenses. It's traditionally a governmental service that's supported by taxes. And as Judy knows, we don't generate a lot of taxes. We're going to have about an $8 million operating budget. And out of that, only $100,000 comes from property taxes. So it's a very small percentage of our income. The bridge continues to generate strong operating income, even as we prepare for replacement. And so I think really the fact that we're not using tolls to offset general fund activities, frankly, was probably going to happen if the cost of operating the bridge continues to go up. It would have eventually eaten through those transfers. And so I think it makes sense, aside from trying to support the bridge replacement efforts. It's probably a good long-term strategy for those tolls to stay within the bridge fund. So let's talk a little bit about the general fund. The general fund is our primary operating fund for all non-bridge related activities. As I noted earlier, this is the first year without a transfer from the bridge fund. Last year, there was a $2 million. Actually, it's this year. There will be a $2 million transfer. That will no longer occur. Our industrial properties and the parking are expected to generate positive operating income. The airport, Marina Basin, and waterfront rec continue to operate at a deficit, but we're improving. And I think it's really important to see the trends because the goal is to get enough revenue generating to cover all of the government activities such as the waterfront rec. Just kind of burrowing down into the departments, as noted, the industrial properties continue to perform well with Amanda's assistance. We've improved our occupancy and our lease revenues, applying a private sector approach.
I think those will fit because they're small.
Commissioner Thomas, did you have a question?
Sorry, I came off mute backs and I apologize.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Feel free to stop me if you have a question. So Amanda's done a great job of really running our properties like a private sector business with the idea that positive net income will go towards our waterfront rec. So the port is budgeting on the waterfront $1.5 million towards the roundabout and roadway improvements with about $440,000 in grant support. Again, that's going to unlock future development at the waterfront in an effort to make the port long-term sustainable. In addition, this budget includes $885,000 to remodel 2 new Wasco buildings that were acquired this year. And these are expected to serve as the port's future administrative and operations center once bridge replacement activities begin. The port anticipates approximately $1.5 million in revenue from right-of-way acquisition associated with the bridge project. That may be higher, but for the sake of this budget, that's the number that's in here. Commercial properties, which are for the most part the old chamber building and the DMV building and this building, remain negative, but are stabilizing with long-term redevelopment opportunities expected over on the South Marina. The commission is considering redevelopment opportunities at the site of the Marina East and West, which will improve our Marina Basin cash flow. And so we're very excited about what comes there. At the airport, operating revenue continues to grow and losses are narrowing as our new hangar leases come online. The goal is for this department to be financially sustainable. The $2.3 million T hangar and taxi lane project is nearing completion, with approximately $150,000 remaining in capital outlay in the fiscal year 27. This project leveraged over $1.5 million in grant funds and is expected to be a strong revenue generator moving forward starting later this summer. We're also advancing the airport terminal project, which has been in the airport master plan for generations. This budget includes approximately just under $700,000 for engineering, supported by about $650,000 in grant funding for this fiscal year. The total project is estimated to be $9.5 million, with $9 million anticipated in grant funding. So that's a pretty good use of the port's cash flow. And that will open up $50,000 to $100,000 a year in lease revenue. So based on our $500,000 investment in there, I think that's a really good return. Additionally, $98,000 is included to prepare airport property for future land leases, again, supporting long-term revenue growth. I don't know if Jeff Bernard, there's no reason to, Jeff is online. He's our contract airport manager. All of this information, Jeff has been assisting staff with. Moving to the Marina Basin, this is showing one of the most significant improvements year over year, with operating losses reduced substantially. Waterfront rec continues to be a governmental function and is not expected to be self-supporting, but performance is improving modestly. The goal is for our commercial properties, our parking department, and our industrial properties to cover the waterfront recreation expenses with the positive net income off of those enterprise generators. And just returning to the parking program, I think it's a key success story. I mean, it's one of those things nobody likes to pay to park, but with the tolls going away, there's a very clear nexus that the revenue that's coming off of paid parking going to pay for the waterfront rec. I think it's easy to show that. And so the fact that it's there and we've invested in that is a key, we're just one of many ways that we're looking for a long-term sustainable solution to the parks. So switching to the bridge fund remains central to the port's financial structure. So though the direct expenses are now separated and have been for a couple of years, the bridge fund does absorb about 25% of the port's overhead. So like, for example, my salary, Debbie's salary, our facilities team are all in the admin fund as overhead, and then that gets distributed out based on different methodologies. But the important thing there is that 25% of that overhead is absorbed by the bridge fund. And we're cost accounting that out, and our timesheets show that. So it's not necessarily as easy as just moving the bridge fund or eliminating it. There is still some overhead that if down the road that goes away, the overhead issues will need to be reassessed throughout the rest of the general fund. Again, let's see, just touching on that. So toll revenue in this next year will be 9.6 million is what we're expecting to generate off the tolls. 3.8 million of that will be transferred into the Bridge Authority bank account to support the future construction financing. That's the same as what was in the preceding year, this year. And there's also a $1 million contingency is included to manage risk similar to that June of 2024 accident. So that has been bumped up as well. So again, no transfer from the bridge fund to the general fund. That's consistent with commission policy and our IGAs with the Bridge Authority. Despite this transition, the bridge continues to generate strong operating income to support the increasing cost of operation, maintenance, and capital needs on the bridge. Do want to talk just a second about the Capital Reserve Fund. So this budget also introduces the Capital Reserve Fund, which is designed to improve long-term financial planning. So rather than funding future large capital repairs directly out of the general fund, we will now have a certain amount every year that goes out of the general fund, specifically in the first couple of years out of that industrial properties department, which is our Big Seven, Lord Jensen, our timber incubator buildings out in Odell. We will start putting a little bit every year into this reserve fund to replace the roof, HVAC, windows, big ticket items. And you won't see those big capital expenditures done out of the general fund. You'll see them done out of that reserve fund. So that should more clearly show what is available from those asset centers for the waterfront rec, because there won't be that volatility of capital and non-operating activity. So in conclusion, this proposed budget reflects a transition to new financial structure without reliance on toll revenue for non-bridge operations, measurable improvement in operating performance across departments, and a continued focus on long-term financial sustainability and transparency. The port is making meaningful progress toward a more self-supporting operating model while continuing to invest in critical infrastructure and public amenities. And I really do appreciate the commission's time and staff's time in helping develop this and setting kind of a vision from the commission's perspective through our spring and fall planning about setting those goals and the priorities, which are found in this document. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about this message or anything that was in the written document.
I do have a question. How does it work collecting the money and funding like it is from the bridge toll? Is that working out that the money comes, because it's all online now?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty, do people pay it?
Yeah, people are paying it. So, well, because we can turn them over to collections.
Yes.
And also, if they're in Oregon, we can also put a hold on their registration. And so, but we haven't had, I mean, we do some, of course, but people are pretty good about paying. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
curious as I see people go scooting by.
Yeah.
And they said at first, don't, well, I mean, at first we said, no, you don't have to pay. I said, well, sooner or later you're gonna have to pay.
Yeah.
But
Some of
anyway,
the,
just curious.
yeah, some of the people that say you don't have to pay get a rude awakening when they so they get the first bill and then the second bill has a $3 fee added on. But then if they ignore that one, then it goes to 25 and then they get turned over to
Right.
collection.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a process.
Good, thank you.
I was just curious on the west side parking lot, that the one that's just completed, do you guys have any way to keep the revenues that are coming in from that? Just kind of get a good idea of how it compares to the east side parking that we have?
Do you know if we've split that? You probably don't know. Megan would know if or did we split that into its own?
Yeah, and so you're comparing it to the parking lot by the Jensen building, and then you're talking about the one by the Maritime building?
Yeah,
Yeah, so the thing is, half of the Jensen West parking lot is designated to the tenants
oh, okay.
of
Yeah.
that building. So, just the first 2 rows and part of the 3rd row are for the public parking, but we can track what goes on there. And then we've got the passes that are valid at both of those locations as well. That part you can't really track,
Right,
and they're the most frequent users.
yeah. I'll just be curious to see how, as we get into this recreational season, how that parking lot, if there's a way to track how much gets used.
And this area over here, we have paid parking over here for the boat launch as well. So how many different zones are we tracking? Is it 3? Is it
3 or 4.
So we do have zones, like if you get your app and you
Yeah.
get up, there's zones like in town.
Yeah.
And so you put your zone in there when you pay, and then that's how we track from the packet.
Okay.
And I do have to say, Kevin said people don't like to pay for parking, but people do like parking. So that is a complaint that I hear down on the waterfront, is that there isn't enough parking. So, I mean, the positive side is that we did create more parking.
But one of the things, we're paying for parking, but they're not paying to go down to the river, right?
Right.
So that's why I tell them, somebody's gotta pay for all the facilities. So, they don't charge you to go through the gate, right?
Right, there's no gate.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to explain, that it's
Yeah.
really a fee to, yeah.
Yeah.
Cause people really resist this parking thing. We go through this at WAM all the time. We don't charge for parking. But people expect to pay for it, though. I'm amazed how many people expect to pay for parking. So it is interesting. If you come from the city, they expect to pay. But then they sometimes expect to pay again. But I say, then they don't pay again. It's one time.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I was just making sure there's not another. Okay.
If ever, we're actually limited as to what we can charge every day. So we, ports and public bodies, actually any property owner enjoys recreational immunity. So if you are let's say a private timber owner, and you allow people to hunt on your land, you have immunity if a hunter were to get hurt on your property. So in Oregon, the most you can charge for daily parking to access recreation is $15 a day. So you'll notice that if you do have a spot, that's the maximum that you will pay in any one spot.
That's in Oregon.
That's in Oregon.
I didn't realize that.
I have something I'd like you to clarify.
Sure.
And I'm gonna be referring to pages 9 and 11. So on 9, you can see for the general fund's net operating income, it was about $700,000 better than we expected. From expected fiscal year 26 from budgeted 26.
Right.
We budgeted a significantly greater loss of net operating income. Much of that is accounted for by the Marina Basin Department, which also was budgeted to lose about $500,000, but almost lost none for net operating income. And I noticed that part of that can be accounted by the fact that overhead was $250,000, or actually over $300,000 less than budgeted. So my question is, and that's largely salaries, right? So how did we get so lucky that salaries associated with the Marina Base ended up being nearly, over $300,000 less than we expected?
So when I budget, I go through and make my best guess where our administrative fund is going to work. And it's not just salaries, by the way, it's the whole entire department. So for example, it's Kevin's whole entire department. It's my whole.
Right, I get
So
it. You guys are
printers and-
tracking your time.
Yeah, and so it's time but it's also, if you generally they call it a fully loaded overhead rate. So it's not only my time, but it's also all of the materials and everything that we have to pay for.
Right.
So it's everything. But what that means is that there were other areas that ended up having more overhead allocated to them. There's two things going on there. One is that I budget, they call it conservative. And
Yeah.
so I generally overestimate expenses and I underestimate revenue. So that because
Which is appropriate.
well, yeah, because for one thing, you don't want to spend money you don't have, but then also under Oregon budget law, you can't exceed your appropriations without, that's why I will come back to you occasionally and say we have to do a budget adjustment because we're not legally allowed to exceed our appropriations. So there's both the conservative aspect to it, plus then I budget the overhead where I think it's going to be spent, but then we track it and it gets posted as actual. So where people are actually at.
Right.
So it was underspent in the first place. And then some of it was, I believe if my estimates are right, I believe that the waterfront actually ended up using more overhead than it. Yeah. The waterfront was significantly higher in overhead.
Right, it was about
than the
double.
budget. Yeah. That was most of it.
But even so, there are enough differences to our benefit to see this $800,000 difference in our net operating income from estimated to. So I just am curious if there was something we were expecting in the marina that didn't materialize, or is it just like looking at past data and it just ended up costing less this last year?
Yeah, I don't really think that there was anything in particular. Oh, whoops, I'm looking at industrial. Let me look at the marina here.
Because we have the same thing with overhead for industrial. It's about $200,000 less than budget, right? Which is awesome.
Yeah,
That's great. It means our net operating income for industrial properties is actually, $150,000 more than we were budgeting, and that's great.
and I believe that part of this also had to do with the reorganization
Okay, that
too.
yeah.
Because we did have fewer employees in Amanda's department, which was the one I called it maintenance, and now I'm calling it asset management. We've
Okay.
kind of expanded their duties, but we also have fewer people in that department now.
Okay,
Yeah, so if you look at the general fund
yeah,
under expenses overhead.
Yep.
So we're 400,000 less.
yeah, which is
Yeah,
great.
in total.
And much better to be less than, so it's not a criticism at all. I just
You're right. There's a reason why.
kind of paying attention, and it has to do with conservative estimates. And I think that should be on record. It's very important. That's my minor clarification. My major one is that our non-net operating income was almost $5 million less than budgeted. And I just wanted that to be stated why that is the case.
You mean yes,
On
so
page 9 for the general fund, we budgeted about 5.5 million for loss for non-net operating income, but it was less than $1 million.
right, and the non-net, I would have to go back and remember what all is
Part
in
of that, I
there.
think, was the big 7 building. It was, I believe we had.
Well, we didn't sell it, which, but that should have been a net zero.
Yeah, but that's not this.
That was,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it was, let's see, on non-net operating. Actually, it was, I had reserved more than because I reserved the transfer in. So that's 2 million of it. I always wait to see what's going to happen with the bridge fund before I show that money is available to spend.
Okay.
Because even though we have always done that $2 million transfer, it's always been an optional one, that if there was something extreme on the bridge, we could
Right.
have not made
So
it. So that's 2
what you're
million.
saying for the non-net is the 2 million, about half of the discrepancy is the transfer from the bridge fund.
Yes. And the rest of it, I believe, is the fact that we had, the rest of it is the fact that I am assuming that we will get paid for the Lower Mill property this year, that transfer will take place.
All right.
That sale, I'm sorry, will take place. So that's the rest of it, is the sale of the Lower Mill property. Because that was all counted, that was not counted as revenue, because I didn't want to count that. I try to find a way to make sure that we don't spend money we don't have. And so when I budgeted getting the money, I also did that offset at the very end to show it as not available.
Yeah, and just a clarification for public record, the Marina Basin Department, our estimated, net operating income is a loss of $50,000 for fiscal year 26. And a loss of estimated to be at $200,000 for fiscal year 27. And I just want to point out that the Marina Green costs about $350,000 a year to maintain. So if you take the Marina Green and you were to cordon that off, the marina itself is a profitable enterprise. And I think that we're on a good trajectory there. And it just also helps illustrate to the public that keeping these nice green spaces is expensive, and which is why we're trying to figure out how to pay for them. So, all right, that's all I had on the executive, the budget officer message.
Thank you.
If anyone else has any questions or clarifications.
Yes, this is Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Debbie, what are your 3 top concerns for this coming year with the budget presented?
So we have some big assumptions, and I talked about these during spring planning as well, and they're still the same ones. Moving forward to be sustainable, we have the assumption that commercial land, and I'm pointing because it's to the south of us, that commercial land right over there gets redeveloped. So that's one big area that if that does not happen, then we will have to have further discussions about how we pay for things. Probably the second biggest concern I have is over, I'm going to preface this because I don't want to make it sound scary, but I always worry about our bridge, only because the expenses associated with our bridge can be unpredictable. And being a finance director, I want things that are predictable, but the bridge is unpredictable because it is over 100 years old. And so we have a really good engineering firm that gives us really good estimates, but things can happen. And especially, I mean, drivers can do things, as Kevin pointed out, in June of 24, we had that big strike that where they hit the lift. And so things like that happen, and we have to be prepared for how we're going to respond to them. And that can really change our financial situation. And then I think the other one is some of the unknowns with our buildings. Kevin didn't really touch on too much the Big 7 because we don't really want to talk about it. But Big Seven, we haven't, I've put $500,000 for repairs in there because we didn't know that there was water. Well, we knew that there was an issue with water. We didn't know it was as serious as it was until we got an expert out there looking at our Big Seven building. So some of our buildings are old. I mean, Big Seven is our oldest building, but we have other ones as well. And so Amanda and I are working on getting inspections of all of our buildings to not only because of what we're found at Big Seven, and we don't want to find that or have that happen at other buildings, but also to help fund this reserve fund, because I need to know how much money should be in that reserve fund. And until we know how much our buildings cost, we really don't know how much to put in the reserve fund. So those are probably my three biggest concerns, is just making sure we do the redevelopment out here, or that we have a plan B if we don't end up doing that for some reason. And then the bridge and then the condition of our buildings are probably the big three concerns that I have.
And Commissioner Thomas, I would add a fourth one, that a lot of these projects are contingent on grants, pretty significant grants coming through.
Yes.
And we just don't know
Yeah.
what's going to come from that. And so, like, for instance, the terminal, airport terminal buildings heavily dependent on grants. All of the waterfront, or a good chunk of the waterfront transportation improvements are dependent on
I
grants.
think there's kind of a key difference though, and that is that, we are not married to the terminal project in the way we are to the waterfront project. So if we don't get the build grants for any reason, I guess I'm far more worried about that.
Yeah.
Sure.
The waterfront transportation one is
Yeah.
the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's heavily dependent on grants right now. Yes.
I think my question is kind of culminating from the conversation. The capital reserve fund is new.
Yes.
Is there a corresponding CIP, capital improvement program, with prioritization on what things we're concerned about and want to happen, and then the funding plan marries up to that?
There is not yet. That's where we need to be.
Okay.
But we're not there yet.
We know when we'll get there. Is there an aspiration to get there?
There is there's been an aspiration since I've been here to get to that, and we just haven't, the board has gone through.
I would say we're actually on certain buildings, we're much closer than others.
Yeah. Oh,
So the Big Seven, actually Amanda didn't get a assessment done. And so we actually did, I think there's 10 different categories in that industry for capital building replacements. And so we've got a 20-year plan that includes a roof and includes HVAC. And so we're starting there, and so the problem is we don't have enough revenue to fully fund it. And frankly, I'll just make a footnote statement that local governments very rarely are even think about trying to fund their capital replacement costs. And so I think this is a pretty proactive effort by the finance team to go that way. We do have the advantage that industrial department has positive cash flow. You can't do this if you're negative. And so I think we're working on it, and Amanda, we're getting more and more. And so I would say by this time next year, we should have a very good capital improvement plan for our industrial.
So we do have that for the bridge.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's a 12-year. We're hoping that it gets replaced.
Key point.
And that's it. Yes.
Getting the bridge replaced is in our best interest. That is for sure. Yes, even though it's not our project, the replacement is not our project anymore. It's in our best interest to get that done.
Having worked at a few places, government agencies all struggle to put together a CIP, prioritize and agreed upon prioritization and urgency. That discipline, divorced from the idea of whether you have enough money or not, is kind of fiscally responsible, saying we know what we need to do. How do we plug this in? And then you're filling in the funding picture as you go. But
yeah,
no one's ever has enough money. It's not a good time to start. When you finally get some money, you figure out where should you spend it.
Well, and we do have the benefit, like at TriMet, you use the example of TriMet. At TriMet, they're heavily grant dependent. And even though we've been talking about grants, in general, we do generate enough revenue to get we get everything done within certain parameters. But then when we throw the waterfront in there to try to come up with enough revenue to fund the waterfront is where it starts to get a bit challenging. But really, theoretically, we should be able to do all those things. And we're working on that.
I think the other thing too, with the fact that we've got the development and the assumptions for commercial development, the commission may say go for it, but we also have to deal with the city and the public and getting the permits for all of these things too. So it's not just a decision made by the board to say, yes, let's go do these things. We're dependent on things that are outside our control. So keep fighting the good fight though. Commissioner Thomas, did you have anything else on that?
No, I appreciate the explanation and the discussion. Actually, I do now that I just Amanda, are there any budgetary concerns that you have given kind of your department and also same for Daryl?
I think I'll echo what Debbie said. I think Big Seven is kind of the focal point of the portfolio in regards to expenses. I think we're hoping, like we talked about spring planning, it won't take all 3 steps to bring that building up to where it needs to be. But the idea that it could always be worse. Our goal is to get this taken care of before the rainy season to then hopefully generate even more income to then place in these capital improvement funds to plan later on for more and more improvements. I think that outside of the bridge is my biggest concern. I think all of our other buildings, with the exception of the Jensen roof, are somewhat stable to the point that we can allocate funds for bigger things 2 and 3 years out, with Big Seven being the only one that appears to be critical at this point.
And then Amanda, is there an estimate of what Big Seven will cost? Like a range, since I know we have 500,000, but is there enough in the budget?
Yeah, so I think all 3 tiers are worst case scenario just over 500,000, which is what Debbie's planning for. Worst case scenario, I think our best case scenario was under 200,000.
I think we're budgeting 530.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
530 if we have to take all 3 steps. For the water mitigation, obviously, we're hoping that routing the water away from the building will stop it, and then just being able to put that water barrier on will suffice in regards to then being able to make the improvements inside, which are far less than if we have to take that 3rd step.
I guess the only thing I would add to this discussion that has been raised, and I've also asked a lot of questions before, so I feel confidence budget is if the bridge does not get the 2026 bridge improvement program to get funded and move forward for construction, and if the inspection for the bridge that's occurring in June comes back, I think, and we need to have another discussion, I think that we should just be really transparent given the concerns that Debbie raised and my understanding of, how imperative the bridge functionality is between 2 communities. So just planning ahead for that. But again, as Debbie alluded to, a lot of that is out of our control. So just being aware of it as a committee, I think is important. But again, I have no further questions. I appreciate the time and diligence moving forward and all the volunteers on this. Thank you, staff.
Are we ready to move on then?
Sounds like we're ready to move on.
Okay. I'm not gonna go through every line item, I promise you. I'm just gonna hit the highlights, hopefully, of going through the budget document. So I'm starting on page 25 in the general fund with the resources. In the current year, we've got just the basics. As Kevin mentioned, we get about $100,000 in property taxes. I always like to point that out because we do have, as he said, governmental activities that are normally charged with property taxes. One of the other line items that I moved up to the top is that we sold some property several years ago out at Lower Mill along the railroad. It was a little strip of land that wasn't particularly useful to us, but the railroad wanted it. So we sold that. And we carried a contract with them. And so every year you're going to see about 20,000 coming in for the next, I think, 5 more years on that. So I moved that out because I want to get rid of the Lower Mill department because hopefully, again, we will have closed that sale by the end of this fiscal year. Most of our industrial property, the basic stuff is all the same. At the bottom of page 25, we have the new Wasco Court building, which is the one that we just purchased, the one that Kevin alluded to, that we'll be doing some improvements. And if the bridge does get their BIP funding, probably about a year from now, we hopefully will be moving over there. So that is what that one is. And then I also included some property that we're looking at over there. And we may or may not end up with it. You never know, but we have not actually purchased it yet. But I did include it in this budget just so we would have that going forward. I have the income from grants for the waterfront transportation. Our commercial buildings, we made the assumption that we would be operating those for about 6 more months. And then around December 31st that we would begin the process of redevelopment over in that area. So there's about 6 months of revenue and expenses associated with those 2 commercial buildings at the south end. The port office, I assume that we would continue to be here for the next fiscal year, which I think is a safe assumption at this point, but hopefully we'll be moving soon. The airport, I did recognize the new T hangars that will come online later this summer. I didn't recognize a full year of revenue, but about, I think, 9 or 10 months of revenue for the new T hangars. Nothing else is new in the airport. As Tor had pointed out, Marina Basin, the Marina Mortgage is actually profitable, but Marina Basin, I set it aside as a geographical area. And so it does include Marina Green and the boat launch and the cruise dock. So it is that whole area around the marina area. Waterfront recreation, not much change in that area either. The parking is a bit higher because of the new parking lots that are coming online, they came online in October, November last year. So this will be the first full fiscal year that we'll have those.
And I just want to clarify, we constantly are having people asking to run concessions at the waterfront of various kinds, right?
I'm Jackie, so Daryl can look at this.
And so, I mean, we kind of made a decision while we're focused on the roundabout to kind of have a moratorium on new activity there. But that is just strategically, I just want to remind everyone that we can revisit that and change and create a policy and pursue more of those concessions to bring in more income from the waterfront area. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
All right. And so the expenditures, they kind of follow the same path as revenues. As I was recently mentioning, the big 7, we do have $530,000 in capital outlay. I did leave that in the general fund, even though that is the idea that new capital reserve fund will be building that up. But since there's no money in the capital reserve fund right now, the best I could do is transfer it in and then spend it. And so to avoid just moving money around, I just left it budgeted here in the general fund. No big changes in the Halyard building.
So a question about that.
Yes.
Had that great presentation from Frame. They want to do a massive expansion there. And potentially we're looking at an investment of, I think, what was it, 1.5 million from the port. Is that coincide with what you recall?
Well, right now, I don't we're not showing that in this budget.
I know we're not showing it in the budget, but because they kind of proposed, hey, what do you think about this? We were like, yeah, potentially, right? That's exciting,
Right.
but they have not moved further on that at this
Well, and I
point.
think, wasn't that like 4 years out? Is it-
Well,
Well, okay, so I think it was closer to 1.2.
Okay,
The team at Freeman is evaluating all options to appropriately spend money if an expansion makes sense. I know Freeman is weighing their options of being able to work with the space they have
Yeah.
and perhaps wait a little longer to make that expansion if it makes more sense to the business side of things. They're very sensitive and aware of doing things that maybe don't make sense quite yet. And I know that they're placing things in new spots in the building and utilizing space internally before making that jump to expand.
do you think it's fair to say that, even if they decide that they are gonna ask for that and wanna do that expansion, it's not gonna be in fiscal year 27?
I think that would likely be the case at this point.
Okay, that's important because it's not reflected in our budget.
Well, and it's also important to point out, because I know this, that I've kind of changed things since I've been here at the port, but in the past, the prior finance director did not like to bring budget adjustments to the commission. So he would budget for like everything. And I don't take that approach, even though I do take a conservative approach. If something is, I kind of look at the more likely than not. If it's more likely than not to happen, or if, like, for example, with the big 7, it's like, I am hoping that we get away with $200,000 expenses there. But worst case scenario is 500. So we budget 500. If we don't spend it, awesome. If we need it, it's there. And so when something like the Frame expansion, I think that is definitely less likely than possible. So it's not in here. But if it happens, I'll be back with a budget adjustment.
If the iron got hot.
Yeah, just like, when we started, when we were sitting here last year, we did not have the purchase of those properties over on Wasco Court. And we were talking about putting in storage units down at Lower Mill. And so I came back to you with adjustments we didn't have to worry about the Lower Mill because it was money we did not spend, but for the purchase of the two buildings, I did come back and ask for the appropriations in order to do that. So those are the things that,
it's a lot more transparent.
yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, well, and I try to have a budget that is a management tool. And if you put just every possible thing in it, it doesn't really help as a management tool, I think. So. Jensen, I'm assuming we'll get something done with the roof this year. That's another place where I might be back. We also can make adjustments between the budget committee meeting today and when the commission actually adopts the budget. So there might be an adjustment for the roof if depending on what happens with it between now and then. We'll have better information by the middle of June. The Maritime Building is just, as you know, but for Jonathan's benefit, the Maritime Building is just kind of running out its life. And so we don't really do any big improvements to it. Hood River Distillers is more than happy to be over there and not expecting any big improvements to it. And when their lease is up in 2029, then we'll be talking about redevelopment on that lot as well. Timber, not a lot expected to happen up at Timber, up down south. The Wasco Loop building is the new one, so I put some estimates in there for what that is going to cost us. And actually the 2 new ones at Wasco. Lot 1 is sitting over there waiting for the waterfront to get finished up. As I mentioned, Marina East and Marina West, I'm estimating a half year of activity with those 2. If that changes, that's another one where I'll be back probably with a budget adjustment if we end up having to run those out longer. And then waterfront transportation is just primarily some overhead associated with it. Megan's department is the capital development department, and she is pretty much running that project at this point. And that's why a big chunk of her department is in waterfront transportation. And then the rest of us to help support that project. Lower Mill is going away, as I mentioned. Hopefully the transaction will have been completed. If not, by June 30th, hopefully shortly thereafter. We'll hope that we are done with that. The port office. And then I did start a new department for the Marina Property Redevelopment, which is again, assuming that we take those buildings down over there and something else goes in. At this point, I think we're looking at a land lease over there, so we would not be doing the construction. Another point though, where I might be back if we do decide to do something on our own over there, that's not budgeted. So this is just to get,
Where,
That's the DMV building.
where?
yes,
Where is this?
page 25.
Back on 25?
35.
35. Oh, I need new glasses by the same people. 35, yes.
Is this under total Marina East or under total? You said you created a new,
Keep going down. It's about 3/4 of the way down. It's gray on the left.
oh, okay, thank you.
That's the redevelopment
Right, okay.
over there, because I didn't want to like try to account for it with one of the buildings because it doesn't really make sense. So I just gave it its own
Okay,
little space.
At this point, it's all overhead.
Yes, at this point, it's all overhead.
all
And
right.
again, but then if that changes, that's why I would be back, is if that changes and we decide to do something, then that would change.
Rewinding to 30, did you say there was a capital outlay potentially at Jensen or no?
This fiscal year. So,
Okay.
yeah, if you look to the left
get it.
side, yeah, the $760,000, that was the estimate for the roof at Jensen.
Expensive.
Oh, yeah, these commercial buildings. Yeah, commercial building. And some people, when I first put that in, we did actually get a quote for that, but that's been several years ago, so it might be more. I don't,
He may be back to you.
we might be back. Yeah. We'll see in June. You'll hear from me in June. The airport, again, not a lot of change there. Other than capital improvements, because we don't have a big capital outlay unless the building comes through the FPO building or terminal building, unless more is done on that. But I have budgeted quite a bit for that. I budgeted what was estimated for the first year. If the grants don't come through on that, then of course that money won't get spent, but I did budget for that. Because again, the more likely than not, really just depends on.
And there's a little leftover tea here.
There's some leftover T-hanger money. That's another place where I might be back, because the fun part with capital outlay in Oregon is that our fiscal year ends right in the middle of construction season. And so we give it our best guess on where we're going to be at June 30th. But if it gets really wet between now and then, if the weather stays great, then we'll be done probably. But if it gets really wet between now and then, we may not get as much done as we expect to. So I may be back if we don't get as much done as we're hoping by June 30th. As mentioned, Marina Basin is pretty good. There is debt service in Marina Basin. That is our only outstanding debt at this time. It's budgeted at $70,000 this year. That has next year and then 2028, and then it will be paid off. So that is our only outstanding debt at this point. We do track a little bit with like the boat launch and the cruise ship dock and the seasonal dock, and that I do. When I came here, a lot of that stuff was kind of all mushed in with everything else, and it was hard to look at for me and to track. And so I worked with Daryl and we broke these things out, but we'll see how going forward, how well this is. This is only the 3rd year of having things broken out like this. So I'm trying to get some history and make sure that things make sense the way they are, but over time, stuff might get adjusted. It's always easier. I always tell people it's easier to add things together than it is to try to split them out later. So I tend to split things out a little more because I can always add it together quite easily, but breaking it out can be difficult.
So do we have the houseboat?
That's in the Marina mortgage.
Okay.
Actually, that's in contingency. Sorry, that's in contingency because we don't know what we're gonna have. So. Yeah, that's not, I haven't put that in there. I'll probably be back, I'll be back with, depending on what we decide
Once
to
we get
do.
the quotes and all that.
Yeah, then we'll see where we end up on that. Waterfront recreation.
What
we're
was
still-
Chairwoman Gehrig's question? Can you just,
Oh, she was asking if we had budgeted for the boathouses, and I said
great,
that was. Yeah, that's in contingency.
that was my question. Thank you.
Okay. And again, we break out the spit and the hook, and I think it makes a lot of sense to have Nichols Basin split out, but I'm not sure the hook and the spit. But they are geographically separate areas, so we track what we track.
I like having them split.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think it's good.
And then trails and footbridge, the trails used to be in with Marina Green, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me because the trail runs all the way from over here at the hotel all the way to the end of the hook. And so, so when I was splitting everything out, I split it out and I put the footbridge in with it, just to keep it separate, but that's where it is. And then parking was also 2 years ago, parking was really much in with everything else. And so I split it out into its own department a couple of years ago. We don't have any big transfers out. You may recall last year, that last year being the fiscal year we're in right now, we did transfer out $1.2 million. And we actually did a PERS side, what they call a side account of 1.5 million. The state gave us $300,000. They were doing a special promotion type thing because they were encouraging local governments to do PERS side accounts. And so we did do that. And it's probably saved us right around $100,000 a year. It's saving us about $100,000 a year in PERS costs.
Why is it under total parking?
Which,
The
I'm sorry, that's a different, that was the capital outlay that we did for the
to
building.
build the park.
Yeah, the transfer was the 910, the
There it is.
910,000.
Right now. Okay.
Yes, and then the rest of it came out of the bridge fund.
Right. Oh,
Sorry, because I said 1.2 million and look at the number that you found right there.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 1.2 million also happens to coincide with what we had budgeted for the new parking lots. And that was a really actually accurate number. That's right about what the two new parking lots cost us. But anyway, we did do the PERS side account. We'll have that savings for about 20 years. It will be, and hopefully in 20 years, the PERS actuaries will be doing a better job and we won't have these huge liabilities. But anyway, it was a great way. We spent the 1.2 million. We're saving 100,000 a year, plus the state gave us the 300,000 towards it. So all in all, it was a good thing that we did, a good financial move. Does anybody have any other questions about the general fund? So the bridge fund doesn't have a lot of difference. So I wanted to talk for just a moment about tolls because I hadn't really thought about them that much until I got here. I hadn't dealt with tolls before. So our tolls are set and they don't have any kind of inflation or anything. So they've been $1.75 now for almost 3 years. Or if you're breeze by in your car and you go across, it's $1.75. It's been the same price for 3 years now, even though inflation goes up, everything costs more. So we're kind of dependent on increases in traffic, and we have not seen that. So, it's, as Kevin alluded to, it's good probably that we're not doing that $2 million transfer anymore, because I think we'd be having to have conversations about what our toll rates are if we did continue the transfer. So, so because we're not seeing an increase in traffic right now, I did leave the toll revenue the same as the current year estimate, which I think is going to be pretty close. This is another place though, where if we do see an increase, I'll be back asking for more money because we do have that second piece. If you see the toll revenue, we have the 5.6 million, and then right below it, we have the 3.8 million. The 3.8 million is the amount that we transfer to the Bridge Authority for their building their reserve in order to get a loan. And so, and that amount of money is pledged in an IGA, an intergovernmental agreement. And so if we do all of a sudden see an increase in tolls, then I'm gonna have to transfer more to the Bridge Authority. And so I would have to come back and ask for to go ahead and be able to do that. But I also don't want to overestimate revenue that I don't really think is going to come in. So this was where it's difficult to be conservative with revenue and with expenditures because they have to match up in this particular case. And everything else, so in April of 2025, so just a little over a year ago, we closed the toll booth. And so that's a big reason why salaries and wages are quite a bit lower. These last year's budget and then this year's estimate, they're up a little bit. We have found that we do need some summer help. And so we keep adjusting as we go through the year. We've been adjusting how we handle things. And so I think right now we've landed on, we have a pretty good front office and it's pretty well staffed. And everybody's back from maternity leave. And so it's feeling pretty good right now. So I think we've got it figured out. And then the first section there of expenditures, that's just operating basically what we call the front office and then the back office system, which is the actual BreezeBuy system itself. So the software and all the work and everything that goes into managing that system. So the first section here on page 43 is just actual operations. So keeping the tolls going, getting invoices out, getting payments in, getting those payments deposited, all those things that we have to do.
Quick question. The port has made a loan to the Bridge Authority of $1 million, which is largely been used for things like lobbying, so on and so forth. Why for the proposed next fiscal year do we have $300,000 budgeted as a loan?
Because that's about what's going to be left out of the $1 million.
We didn't do the whole million at once. We only parceled it out as they needed it.
So they used $352,000 in fiscal year 24-25. And then, which they might.
So to be clear, it wasn't like, here's $1 million.
Right.
It's as you need the money.
As you need it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
All
Yep.
right.
And so
that's what they have left.
That's what's
Yeah.
left. Is that
Yeah.
300?
yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Which is about their government affairs lobbying.
Yes.
What question?
352 plus 600.
That doesn't add up to $1 million. So, but was there another?
No, they're not going to use the 600 this year.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the budgeted, right?
Yeah, that was the budgeted. I budgeted what I thought was going to be left last year. And so this year I'm budgeting what I think is going to be left.
Excellent.
You are correct. It does not add up to $1 million. Well, it adds up to a little more than $1 million. And then if you go on to page 44, then that's the actual maintenance. So that's the work that gets done out on the bridge. The professional services in there is the $230,000. That's mostly for our engineering firm that tells us what we need to be doing to keep the bridge up and safe. And then we have the overhead for
And
that.
does that 230 also include when we do a lift and we have all the payments to the companies to help
Yeah,
with
yeah,
monitoring?
yes, yeah, WSG, yes. J.
WJT.
WJE, sorry, all these W were acronyms, yes. Oh, well.
No, there's a WJT.
I should have just said, yeah, that company. And then you'll notice though that the capital outlay is 2.3 million this year. And so that's right from their from that engineering firm, HDR. Got that one right. That is actually right off of their estimate for the next year. So that's what that is. And then I have the transfers out, and as Kevin mentioned, $1 million in contingency. So if you look, the change in fund balance is a little over $1 million, but if we don't spend the $1 million in contingency, the bridge fund is pretty much going to break even this year, which is good. So that's kind of where we're at with the bridge.
What's in the HDR? It's 2.3, that's pretty much double, right?
Yeah, in the spring planning, there was that big 11 by 17.
Sure.
Yeah,
So-
do you remember what's in there?
Yeah, so we're switching from spot welding to spider welding, which costs more. That's one thing. We had this $50 million worth of painting for rust mitigation that they anticipated. And so a couple years back, we were like, whoa, we don't want to spend $50 million on this bridge because we're trying to replace it. Can we kind of break it down and do it more piecemeal as needed? A lot of that is Dutch painting. The painting is really expensive. So
Page 14 has a little description of what the 2.3 totals up to. So
Near the bottom.
what's it say?
yeah, so fiscal year 27 capital programs total 2.3 include a range of preservation risk mitigation projects such as steel repairs, painting, embankment stabilization, deck welding, and mechanical and electrical inspections.
And the painting is so expensive that is lead paint on that bridge. So whenever they go out and do anything, they have to have all the netting and everything too.
We've also had quite a bit of turnover in the facility side. So we also have operational training, there's some machinery risk assessment, and development of updated O&M manuals and increased training. So that's a part of that as well.
Is that training for the bridge lift or for working on the bridge?
It's primarily for the lift.
Correct, it's to train myself, the facilities crew on more updated versions of being able to lift it on a regular basis to ensure it's all working correctly.
And I believe Commissioner Thomas has a question.
I do, thank you. I believe you were on the last public meeting, Debbie, correct? Where we went through this with the Bridge Authority and talked about the transfer out and the tolling and stuff. So
Yeah.
for the record, can you just state that every money that's being transferred to the bridge is money? Because they alluded to, some money disappearing overnight, and I just want to state you were on the call, like you handled it beautifully. So thank you, staff, for holding composure. But all the money that we're being transferred out and doing is according to the IG, correct? For the record.
Yes, for the record,
Great.
yes, it all matches the IGA, and that is where the 3.8 million is called out in our budget. It also shows up as the exact same amount in the Bridge Authority's budget. And it gets transferred every month, and it's in their public meeting every month. I provide, the amount of revenue in our back office, the company that does our back office system, Neology. They provide me with reports every month that tell how much, that break it out, and you can go through and I mean, it's thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of transactions every month. And so I go through and calculate, they break it out. So it's easier for me to calculate the additional toll revenue, which then goes and is transferred immediately into, immediately as soon as I do the report.
Right.
But every month it gets transferred over to the Bridge Authority's LGIP. So
Thank you.
It's all there, and it's all in public documents as well.
And it's audited.
And it's audited, yes, on both ends. It's audited.
Thank you.
We are audited and the Bridge Authority is audited.
Great.
So, thank you.
Second question, that was sort of the same discussion that you're aware of. And then just for the budget committee, again, the money that they're using, the loan from the port that they intend to pay back is mainly for lobbying. However, there are some permits that they're paying the Army Corps to review, which is raising some concern that we may, as a bridge authority, need to request more funding. Is there any potential contingency that we're showing on the budget that sort of aligns with that discussion?
There is not at this time,
Aside from the $1 million.
aside from the $1 million. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that we would have to come out of contingency, yes, at this point.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
I have a question. The next section is the bridge replacement fund, which is the money that is
That we have left,
that
yes.
we have left that is going away. And I guess my question is, there's $2.5 million there.
Yes.
which is proposed to be spent on engineering.
Well, that's what we're, yeah, because engineering will not be, so getting into the bridge replacement fund, yes, there's about 2.5 million left. It was ARPA money that was
Yeah.
passed through ODOT
Yeah.
to the port. And we couldn't all the other grants that the port had received for the replacement bridge, we transferred to the bridge authority. This one we could not transfer.
So that is basically the 2.5 million. It's the port's money, but the port's using it kind of to the Here Bridge Authority use this for engineering and design for the new
Yes.
bridge.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we can kind of pretend we don't have that.
Yeah, we don't have it.
We don't. It's
Because if we did not spend it on the replacement bridge, we have to give it back.
correct.
So we don't have it.
It's earmarked.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
I think it's a good clarification. If you're looking at the general fund, it's like someone might say, well, why are we budgeting 2.3 million on, capital, improvements on the bridge when there's this 2.5 million
Oh,
here?
right.
Right, but it's important to point out, it's designated.
That is correct. This could not be
Great.
used on the existing
And
bridge.
Debbie, when do you anticipate that 2.5 being spent?
It has to be spent by December 31st.
Awesome.
So this is the last year.
This really is the I know, I keep saying this is the last year.
Our finances are simplified.
Exactly.
Great.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
That's right. We'll find another fund to bring back to you.
Yeah, no more funds at this point. So yes, that's all that's in there now is the 2.5 million, which does need to be spent by December 31st. Or else we have to give it back to ODOT. And then the bi-state bridge replacement fund, because I have fun coming up with names for funds nowadays. That one is where, because I want this to be very transparent, the fact that we are taking the additional toll revenue and we are transferring it to the bridge authority. So I run it through this fund to separate it out from the bridge fund. So once I calculate the dollar amount, I put it in this fund and then it goes over to the bridge authority's local government investment program account, LGIP.
To deposit into their bank.
Yes, I deposited into their very separate, very specific bank account for accumulating this resource. So it's a fairly simple one, but I did it just for transparency. And then we have the administration fund, which I created a couple of years ago, because before we were splitting everybody, but we were doing it very manually and we were putting, 0.1 of Kevin in, Marina West and 0.1 of Kevin in Marina East and 0.1 of Kevin over here and there and everywhere. And so instead of doing that, I just created an internal service fund. And that way I can true it up. I can see where people actually work. And then I can.
So just to clarify, this administration fund is double accounting.
It is double accounting if you add everything up.
Right.
Yes.
So it's mainly, it's mainly just helpful for us.
Right.
Right.
And when I do the annual financial report at the end of the year, I just eliminate this.
Yeah.
But the idea is that if each of your facilities, so if, for example, Big 7 was its own facility all by itself, somebody would need to provide administrative services for it, right? Somebody would have to manage it. Somebody would have to do the accounting for it. You would have all these things that you would have to provide. Well, the port provides that. And so this is the way then of charging that particular asset for the resources that it uses. So they're all in here. I've broken it out into executive, which is primarily Kevin's department, communications and IT, which Patty and I share, finance, which is pretty much my department, human resources is my department, insurance, Patty and I guess, work together on that. Asset management is the old maintenance department, which Amanda is now managing. And then capital development and waterfront management is the one that Megan's on vacation, so she can't be here today, but Megan is managing that part. And it includes long-range planning for the port as well, is in her area. The revenue from outside sources, the Bridge Authority does pay us to assist them. My assistant Yana and I do almost all of the regular day-to-day accounting for them. We do all of their accounts payable, receivable, We track their cash, all those kinds of things. Kevin is the interim executive director for the Bridge Authority. So when we spend time on them, we bill them, and then so that's where that revenue comes from. We are expecting to get the grant for the strategic business plan that actually so at some point when you're preparing a budget, you have to say pencils down because every day you get better information, but if you go back through, you have to change everything. That grant is actually going to be $50,000. So we'll need to go back and reallocate $25,000 somewhere, but it involves reallocating the whole thing. So I didn't do that yet. I mentioned the PERS side account, and so that's zero, of course, for this year. But last year, you can see where the state gave us $300,000, and then we spent the 1.2 million to do the side account, and then contingency, because I want this to balance to zero. I put contingency in here, but then that also means that I have to also reallocate. If we use any contingency, I have to reallocate to cover that with revenue somehow. And so I think all of our departments are still pretty straightforward.
I just have a question about under the insurance risk and safety
Yes,
category.
yes.
I noticed that we had a jump from about $145,000 for fiscal year 24-25 to $190,000.
Yeah, it actually came in around about 175,000. That's why I left it the same for this year.
Okay, so
But we did have a big jump in insurance.
right. Who's our provider for that?
Special districts insurance.
So this is our general liability
Yes.
policy.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that one's been interesting because they made an error 2 years ago and we paid artificially low
Correct.
2 years ago. But then it made an absolutely huge jump the following year. Because I think we were under 100,000 not that many years ago. But it's interesting. I belong to a forum where we all email each other and everybody has been complaining about insurance.
Did they, I mean, at the state conference, they certainly have discussed for the last 2 years how special districts get hammered by some of these lawsuits and jury awards, and they've been really significant. And is that the specific issue that's causing these to go up, or are they attributing it to something else? Do you know? Are they attributing it to something else?
I don't know. We've argued with them because I've argued with them because our history is really good. I mean, we don't have claims.
Yeah.
And yet we continue to pay these really high
That was like
fees.
us arguing with Chubb about the bridge insurance. Yeah, it's like talking to a wall.
I think you're right. I think there's been a lot of HR issues that they're
Yeah.
trying to recover elsewhere.
Yeah, by raising rates. Okay.
Yeah. We have asked our insurance agent to look, I mean, there's nothing cheaper for
Sure.
us.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
it's kind of one of those, it is what it is. I've raised deductibles up as high as I possibly could. Some things they don't allow deductibles for, like some of the liability insurance, but on our buildings and everything, I raised it to $10,000 because we can absorb a $10,000 loss. But most of the stuff isn't like vehicles. I took some of our lower priced vehicles even off the list, but the whole out of the 190,000 vehicles are like, 10,000 or something, if
Yeah.
even that.
Okay.
So it doesn't help much to work on those, but I keep trying. to get
Thanks. It's
down.
just something I like to keep an eye on.
Yeah,
It's one of those places where sometimes you can see a lot of inflation, and then if you push back, you can maybe get something different.
right,
And just to know, that does not include the bridge insurance. That's
right.
Totally separate.
Yeah. The bridge has a line item for insurance and that's the one that's specific. Although the insurance does cover the liability on the bridge, not the structure. Yeah, so. I was trying to think if there's any asset management did change some because the old one, like I said, was just facilities. And now we've added Amanda and her assistant in there and just kind of changed things up a bit. And then capital development is Megan's department, which is all new in there. But I think overall, when you look at total expenditures, even if you take out the 1.5 million, we're right pretty close to where we were a year ago. Because total expenditures budgeted for this fiscal year is just under 5.9
Which
million.
1.5 million are you talking about?
On page 58, the right, almost in the middle of the page.
Yeah.
Total expenditures.
Yeah.
Almost 5.9, so just to the left there, that was what was budgeted for this fiscal year.
Uh-huh.
That included the $1.5 million payout
The,
for the PERS by
for
them.
the PERS. Oh, okay.
So if you
Right.
take that out, we're not that far off with 4.4 million. We're that's right about where we're at. So even with all the restructuring and everything and the inflation, we've kept it pretty good.
Absolutely. And I think that what's nice about this fund from a management perspective is that we can start tracking overhead. Right, so
Yes.
it's nice to be able to see it in its entirety.
Well, and each manager has their own department. Before, when it was kind of all over the place, then you couldn't really manage your department because you were split, your department was split all over. Now you have your department, and so you can manage it. So if vehicle maintenance gets too expensive, you'll be hearing from me.
It's like take the PERS things out, that's like an expenditure increase of less than 2%, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It's really good. Yeah. Okay.
And then finally, we have our new fund, which is the Capital Reserve Fund, which I'm very excited about, except it looks kind of weird this year. But that's because I don't have a lot of good information, but I wanted to get it started. And so the whole idea, and this is why I usually don't leave blank lines in, but I did, because I want you to see what my vision is anyway. We would have a beginning, so whatever carries over from the end of the year will be the beginning balance the following year. And then we'll add in whatever gets, transferred over there during the year. Each cost area, so in this case, at this point, it's just our industrial buildings. This may expand also, but you got to start somewhere, right? So I started with the industrial buildings. I think it looks kind of odd because what I tried to do was take a % of operating revenue to go in there because I didn't want to throw the buildings negative yet. Well, I don't want to throw the buildings negative, just transferring money. But we don't have a good target. I want to get like a target, like if the roof has to be replaced in 10 years, I want to take that dollar amount, divide by 10 and put that much away every year for 10 years.
Are you saying when you say a percentage of operating revenue, is that net?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, net operating
Right.
revenue.
Even back to those charts in the budget message.
But after I did this, then it won't work out exactly because then I adjusted the other departments a little bit. So it doesn't work out exactly, but it's a beginning. And it's not enough. I'm pretty sure we can't do it, although Jensen isn't bad, but and Halyard, but anyway, I just want you to it was almost more for a visualization at this point than for super accurate numbers yet. And then expenditures, when they happen, will be budgeted in here out of each one. And then there will be an ending balance that will carry forward then into the next year. So I kept all of it in, even though a lot of these lines are zeros, but I kept it in just so you can see what my vision is.
Do you think it would be smart to seed this reserve fund?
Yes, I do want to seed it, but I need to know how much to seed it with.
And how do you
Well,
propose?
so I had my example of if we need to replace a roof in 10 years, that means it's probably already 10 years old.
Yeah.
So that 10 years of history really, see, the day we replaced the roof, we should have started putting money away for the next replacement. So to take that, so if it's $1 million and we need to replace it in 10 years, but it's a 20-year roof, I would take 500,000 and put it in there. So that
To accelerate it.
right. So, well, and to get it catch up, it's really a catch up. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So we should.
that's a plan to do.
That is a plan to do, but I need to know what the numbers are.
Understood.
So that's where we're at with this. But yes, I do actually want to have a beginning transfer in at some point. But I need to know what the numbers should be to transfer in. I'm actually kind of excited about this fund. This is where the geeky side of the accountant comes out over here, because I'm kind of excited. about
It's a
this
good
fund.
management tool. I mean, we used to have this for vehicles, even when I was city manager in Garibaldi, we had all our vehicles when they were gonna break down, and every year we sock a little bit aside for that replacement. So it's a great tool.
And we actually right now have a few more vehicles than we need, I think. We're good on vehicles, but we've kind of, in the past, we're on kind of a process of replacing one every year. So,
Except to be the same.
it works out kind of to be the same, so then it just becomes an accounting process of moving the money and then spending the money. So, but for buildings, I've been wanting this for a really long time. Since I got here. So I'm excited about that. The rest of the budget document is just more informational. So it has an organizational chart, and this is the way that we are organized now. This was redesigned when we did the reorg in January. And so it's up to date and current. I also,
No, they're not vacancies.
which one, is there some?
No. Down below, the ones that don't have names, you're just wondering,
Oh, on the org chart.
yeah. It's the ones that are,
The ones that have names are actually contracts. And and they're in green. So like Cable Houston is up at the top, that's our legal counsel. The airport manager is a contract, and then Gretchen Goss is a contract. And Kenton, our security person, is.
Future trust, you use different color. Not green, red. Thanks.
Oh, because you're
Take a note.
colorblind.
Vibrant
Those colorblind
yellow.
folks.
Sorry.
And blue must be retirement.
Waterfront manager is very clear. That was special and different.
I don't know, Daryl's having so much fun. I'm trying to keep her around.
Yeah. Special
know.
project.
I don't know. And then starting on 67. So this is kind of we made some changes to it. This is kind of a legacy report that we've always had in here that went through our salaries and wages. And I decided, especially this year, that it's not that meaningful. Not that, I mean, managing salaries and wages is incredibly important. So I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that we have a certain amount of work to get done. And whether we hire somebody as an employee to do it or we hire a contractor to do it, shouldn't matter if we're getting the work done. So I've really been focused, and I'm not there yet, but I always like to share my aspirations with you. I want to get where we have key performance indicators, KPIs, and that's what we report on is, are we getting, well, and Amanda had a great one. Are we retaining our tenants in our buildings? What's our our retention of that, retention of employees? Just all these things. Are we getting accounts payable paid on time? So all these things that we do, and I think it probably brought it home. One of our employees up front, we were having trouble hiring a part-time person, and we ended up going through a temp agency, and she's great, and the work's getting done. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter whether it's an employee or whether we hire somebody through a contract to get the work done. The important thing is the work's getting done. So I did, and I probably will keep something along these lines of this report that shows what our salaries and wages are. And we do have a little more investment, I think, if you will, in an employee than we do in a contractor. But the really important thing is how much work is there to get done, and is the work getting done in a timely and efficient manner. So this report is in here, but it'll probably get changed by next year. And it does show that our salaries are actually, they've gone up a bit, but But overall, the base salary is actually lower than it was last year for the base. And then we have a COLA, and then it's actually, I think, contingency that threw us up the most. We do keep a contingency in when we're calculating salaries and wages. And then our benefits are down significantly, 18% reduction, but that's primarily because of the PERS buy down. Like I said, that's saving us about $100,000 a year. So that was pretty significant, as you can imagine. So we have that, and then FTE is on page 70, which again is a helpful number to have, but it doesn't tell the whole story, because it doesn't tell you if the work's actually getting done. And then we talked about the capital improvement. Right now, we don't have a true, like I would like to have the 5-year plan, but a lot of places have a 5-year plan. And as we work through the reserve fund, that's going to help facilitate a 5 or 10-year capital improvement plan as well. But this list is primarily, and I did over on the left-hand side, I did add so that you can see actually which actual facility it is. Because some of them just said like general fund industrial, and if you read on over, it said Big 7. But I think having just the code over on the left-hand side can be helpful as well. It's helpful to me anyway. And then where is the money going to come from to do these? And so sometimes there's grants noted over on the right-hand side, but sometimes it's just going to be money that the port has to come up with. So we have about 2.15 million coming from grants and things like that. And then the port would be spending 4.6 million, but that includes the 2.3 million for the bridge in that 4.6. So about half of what is shown coming out would be, well, it shows it down below on the lower right-hand corner. 2 million will be coming out of the general fund, 2.4 million, because there's a little bit, besides the 2.3 of the big stuff that has to be done to the bridge, there's also some improvements to our back office system that are included in that. So, and then the admin fund, we budgeted a couple of vehicles that we probably won't need this year, but it's always good. It does seem like we do have sometimes equipment breakdowns. I know a couple of years ago, we bought a new snowplow that we needed. So from time to time, things do come up. So I like to have that money in there budgeted just in case things come up. The commission has to approve our contracts and stuff, those kinds of purchases anyway. So having the money budgeted helps with that. So that's the capital improvement list. And then there is a summary on page 77 that does kind of show you the port as a whole. This I also inherited, and I've wanted to make improvements to it, but I haven't come up with a lot of good ideas for improvements. But it does show basically operating revenues and then operating expenses, and then the other sources of revenue, capital outlay, other special. Oh, the special payment is to the foundation. The port does have a foundation, and so we have budgeted some money to support the foundation, and then debt service, and then our required transfers, and our change in fund balance. So it kind of shows it in a more summarized way. And again, this has always been in the budget, so I just did that.
This page is what kind of populated some budget message. A little easier to focus on the operation side.
Yeah, so this has always been in there. And so as the commission changes over the years, then there's probably not as many people that are tied into this as there has been in the past. But I don't like to come in and change everything, because sometimes we're used to seeing certain things. And then you go, where is that?
What year is this? Your 3rd year?
This is my third, yes,
Yeah.
budget. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's good. Well, thank you. And I'm always open to suggestions if there's things people want to see. When we were talking about the the 2.3 million, the bridge, I should include the bridge, list of projects, the 12-year CIP that we get. We included in spring planning, but I mean, there's no reason I can't put it in this document too.
It was in your capital list.
Yeah, it's in the list, but I mean, that whole spreadsheet is helpful. I think it gives you a good big picture of the bridge.
Very hard to read.
Yeah, it is, but I don't know. Anyway, yes or no, I don't know. And then the appendix that starts on page 79 is all just for Oregon budget law, because when I did change everything, I really changed it. So there wasn't really a way to put the history the way they want to see it. And this is the last year that I have to do that because I am in my third year. And so it's the last year that you have to see that. From now on, it will all be just in the regular reports. So that was a whirlwind tour through the budget. And so you get to deliberate it now, I believe. Or ask more questions.
I'd like to open this to deliberation.
I think it's getting, maybe more simplified in some ways. I mean, because each state has expenses, it kind of explains what something costs. I mean, I think before you always wonder how much of the overhead went to the marina or to the airport, where we paying our fare, and yet, it has to be because somebody has to go after all those grants. Somebody's got to do all that work. But I think it's time to kind of explain where everything goes in the budget. That helps. But before it was never really there. It was just a total thing, but you didn't know.
Yeah.
But that's been back a number of years ago.
What I didn't like about the old fund structure was, and especially since the tolling was in with everything else, everything wasn't broken out well. And so tolling subsidized things, but you couldn't really see what it was subsidizing because it all just kind of, it all kind of just was all meshed in together. That's how I always think of it, meshed in together. And then at the end, you said, well, there was enough revenue to cover all of the expenses. Well, yeah, but where did the revenue come from? And so I prefer to see it where you're making a conscious effort, right? Or a conscious decision that yes, this toll revenue is going to cover these things and we're going to make the transfer so that it covers it. Or, the parking and the additional revenue from the industrial properties is covering the waterfront. I like to see that so that it's a conscious decision that that's what's happening. And so I've been trying to get to that with these reports.
Are we in deliberations, Mr. President?
This is deliberation, yeah. Did you have something to add to it?
I just, do we want to add a line item somewhere for Commissioner Thomas's suggestion or about the possibility that more loan money might be asked for? I mean, or should we just allow that to be a contingency item? Thoughts? I mean, I don't know if that's Commissioner Thomas do you know that that's going to happen?
I think that if I will know more, I think in July or of this, once the BIP is announced, and then also when there was some information gathering for the ARPA grant and how much that was. So I just wanted to make sure that we were accounting for that. I don't know or don't have an idea of how much percentage to do. I just wanted to make sure we sort of spoke about that, but
Yes.
I don't know at this time if it's appropriate to assume either way.
Right.
Over.
Do you have a sense of how much money that might be?
I don't, because they were still finding out if they could, what items they could bill against some of the grants that they had available. So I'm not fully aware. I think, Debbie, you have a better understanding of their deliverables to answer that question.
Yeah, we are still working on reconciling all this. The reason that I did not put it in is that I did not want to speak on behalf of the commission, and it's up to the commission to decide, and we can add it, we have options. We can add it in June if we want to have a discussion in June. At the June meeting, we can still add it into the budget before it's adopted. The other thing I can do is just come back with a resolution to amend it if we want to go into the next fiscal year with this.
I think it makes sense to table it for now then. I just wanted to follow up on it.
The history on it, too, it's been two $500,000 tranches that were about 12 months apart.
Well, and I think that Commissioner Thomas had a good point too. If the BIP does not come through, then there's going to be a lot that's just going to be mothballed until some additional grants can be identified to go for. And so I don't know that they will need much money for, I don't know, I assume, and here I'm assuming things, but that they would mothball their lobbying contracts as well until they had something to lobby for.
I don't know. I think it's a wait and see because there are gonna need to be a lot of discussions and a lot of decisions about a lot of things. I'm being very articulate. So yeah, I mean, just fingers crossed for now.
I think the fact that there's $300,000 in there will get them through
Yeah,
September, so I think what's really important is the lobbying this summer, right? And making sure that they've got enough funds to get through September.
Yeah, they have plenty of money to get through September. Probably the next fiscal year they would be able to get through.
Okay.
So I have a question. At this point, whatever happens, because we don't know how soon this bridge and what's gonna happen, does that mean the port is gonna keep taking care of it and that's gonna keep getting funded back to pay those bills for the port to do that out of the bridge fee at that time?
Yeah.
I mean, that will get returned back to cover.
So, yeah, so the money that's been being deposited
Right.
into the bridge authorities
Right.
account will stay there.
It stay there, okay.
It's gonna stay there. The biggest thing from us operationally is if there's an impasse, is that our 12-year CIP will become a 30-year CIP.
Okay,
They won't start needing to look at the $75 million paint job,
right,
that
because
was
we,
in year
I
15.
underestimated. 50 million.
It's like every year. you add-
Construction inflation is a lot. It's higher than CPI.
And I think that's, if there was ever a thought out there that somehow the port does not want to see this bridge replaced, that is such that's really inaccurate. Because of those future costs that.
it's gonna keep, and the bridge is gonna get older.
Exactly.
And so I keep thinking, is this really gonna happen? If that, how many years yet? It's still gotta take care of. We still go across it all the time.
And luckily with Debbie's technical expertise,
Right.
we've been able to set this thing up so where that bridge is its own thing. So
Right.
if we're so successful, then that bridge fund just goes away.
Right.
So, and we can work on getting our general fund departments, running for themselves. But yeah, that 30-year CIP is not good.
Well, I mean, this is the second budget that I've been part of. It's from the first one, I think you made some change. You were in the process of making changes and I'm not sure what the budget looked like before that, but this is, I mean, there's so much more clarity compared to what you were comparing to it last year. I mean, I think it's pretty well explained in here. It's good to have that granular vision of it.
Well, I'll just say I'm happy with this budget as it stands.
And I think Debbie does an amazing job, is all I can say.
You.
I just look at that.
Aw.
We're very lucky to have.
I think so. I mean, I think about it, that's just a lot to keep track of. And she's doing it. So that's what I like about it. It's right there. Yeah.
We got new software a couple of years ago. That was very helpful.
Helped. I remember you said that. Yes.
That's been very helpful.
And it's all worked out. Everything's got fed into it finally. Everything's, yeah.
Pretty much.
Pretty
It's-
much.
There's still, it had a lot of features, and so there's still some things we need to implement, but yeah, it's primarily, it's up and running. So it's good.
Does anybody have any further deliberation before we make any motions?
Just looking at that beautiful weather out there. Like tour.
So is it on me to ask for a motion to approve, starting with the tax levy rate of?
I move that we approve the property tax levy rate at the rate of $0.0332 per thousand of assessed value for fiscal year 2026-27.
You have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then we'll also entertain a motion to approve the budget as amended,
It actually wasn't amended,
Oh.
so does not need to be,
as
but that's good. As presented is good, yes.
Okay, I move to approve the budget of 26-27 as it is.
got a second, all in favor?
I,
Danny, thank you. You do a good job of explaining it.
we get an eye from Catherine as well. I think. Oh, yes.
There she is.
Aye.
I only want to make sure it's clear because we barely have a quorum here.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, that's perfect.
He has to say adjourn.
What, yeah,
Say it?
yeah, let's adjourn this.
Then it's done.